Where did this come from? How did it migrate into the Christian church? As with all counterfeits, it happens slowly, in an insidious, very slow way. Let me give you a little history. Have you heard about the Oracle of Delphi? Anybody here? Look it up in the encyclopedia. Way back before the time of Christ, in Delphi, Greece, and there's a picture, they had some rocks from which emitted volcanic vapors. A Greek pagan priestess called a Sibyl, S-Y-B-I-L, that's where the name comes from. She would go to the vapors and she would inhale them. She would go into a trance and begin muttering and babbling. They called it the language of the gods. The priest would then come along and translate these oracles, these messages from the gods, and they were always very nebulous, vague messages that never could give you any definite guidance. And it's called the Oracle of Delphi. This practice of people going into a trance-like state and babbling and the language of the gods, in voodoo, they have the very same thing. They beat drums, they go into a trance, they speak the language of the spirits, they call it. You have this practice in many pagan religions around the world. Well, you know, it migrated into many of the Christian churches back in the late 1890s. And again, at first it was laughed at, but you know, the devil has a way of making counterfeits look genuine. Gradually, the genuine gift of tongues began to be supplemented or overshadowed by the counterfeit. Now, I believe I've received the gift of tongues, the real thing. And now, you know, we've got some translators in the back. They've got the gift of tongues, but most of them have learned English in their different languages. I think I got it in a miraculous way. I was driving one day from Demi, New Mexico to California. I was going from Texas to California. In Demi, New Mexico, I'm pulling this old truck, 54 Chevy truck, pulling a big old 20-foot trailer, putting along 45 miles an hour by myself, bored. Radio didn't even work. And I said, Lord, please give me someone to witness to. I always pick up hitchhikers because I used to hitchhike, and it breaks up the monotony. You talk to somebody. Right after I prayed, God answered my prayer. There was a gentleman on the side of the road, a Latin gentleman. I stopped and picked him up. He was freezing because it was the middle of winter, and all he had on was a dress shirt and jeans. And so I turned on the heat, and I said, is that better? And he said, ¿Cómo? I said, you warm? And I turned up the heat, and I tried to talk to him, and I found out he didn't speak a lick of English. I did learn his name was Omar. The extent of my Spanish was burrito, enchilada, uno, dos, tres. And I thought, Lord, you got a sense of humor. I asked for someone to witness to, and he doesn't speak English, and I don't really speak Spanish. I took it in elementary school, and I flunked. And I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. And so as we drove along, first I thought, Spanish is kind of like English. You just put O at the end of your words. And it said, I'm going to drive on my trucko to my homo up in California. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And then I thought maybe he was hungry. And I said, you want some dinero? Meaning dinner. And he said, well, yeah, you know, that's money in Spanish. And then I said, this isn't working. And so I said, Lord, give me the ability to speak his language. I said, I'd like to share the gospel with him. I said, Lord, if ever a person needed the gift of tongues, I need it now. You know, friends, I don't know how it happened or when it happened, but somewhere along the way, gradually, words began to come to me. And I'm not kidding. They just began to come to me. And I began to guess. And they were right. I mean, I gave up putting the O and the A at the end of everything. Sometimes that worked. It just fell in that way. But I began to just guess, and he started understanding. He started talking to me, and I understood what he was saying. He said he was looking for trabajo, for work. And I said, yo vivo en las montañas arriba, en norte California. And he's looking at me like, oh, yeah. He said, ¿Tú quieres trabajo conmigo? And I wasn't perfect, but he understood. He came and lived with me in Northern California, was baptized, and God gave me the ability to speak, and I just got a letter from him a few weeks ago. He's living back in Mexico, and the Lord is still working in his life. But from that day to this day, yo no sabe cómo predico en español, pero yo comprendo más palabras si tú hablas despacio. Some of you lento. So the Lord